I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
A confident young man, a superb athlete.
Gary Seegers.
Welcome in Winning Cures Everything. It is the Sunday, September 17th edition of the show. It is the Week 3 recap and reaction show. I'm your host, Gary Seegers. Of course, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, at least until we get this Twitter crap resolved, which, fingers crossed, hopefully soon, we shall see. We shall see. But either way, I'm at Gary WCE on all the different socials. And of course, we got Prime Huey in here today. Looking great. Matt, tell everybody where they can find you as well.
Find me on Instagram, Matt_PT_dip_MDT, or you can follow my PT channel, Strong and Healthy Rehab. I got that off on all socials there. I figured since we missed last week with the Texas, I had to try to like my going out outfit here. This is proper attire down here in Texas, I've learned.
That's the most ridiculous. And I guess it makes sense with Texas having problems with Wyoming pretty much all night last night. Now, they did get some distance towards the end of that ball game, but that will not be one of them that we are going to discuss today. As always, if you guys want to jump into the chat, jump in there. We're going to go over 7 games, and then we will just kind of rapid fire through the rest of these conferences. So anything you want to talk about, jump into the chat. Let us know. We would love to hear from you. You can also check out my stuff. There will be more this week on, obviously last week, a little difficult because I am a father again, in case you are watching for the first time in however long. This is my 3rd. So little girl, Murphy Jean, was born last Sunday, which is why we did not have a show last Sunday, as Huey just talked about. But yeah, she's healthy. Everybody's great. The mom is great. She's a rock star. My mother-in-law is a saint. She's been here with us all week. It's awesome. And it's allowing me to be able to do this. So I'm pretty ecstatic about that. Yeah, everybody's good. Even the 5-year-old. Huey, what's the distance between your kids as far as age?
Like 2.5 years.
Okay, so I waited too long, right? I've got the 18-year-old that's in college. I've got the 5-year-old, and now I've got the baby.
You were like, you got one out of the house, but then you just like one just like whoop, there it is, right there. I mean, life is just hilarious.
No, you've certainly got that right. Gilbert hops in already. He's at Fresno State. Go Dogs. Hey, big win last night, but my God, how much of that was Fresno State actually being good and Arizona State being just putrid? They played 3 different quarterbacks last night, and none of them could do anything. And Jaden Rashada was not one of them because he was out injured. Just terrible. But Mikey King looks good, so that's good. Yeah. Lots of mayhem going on at my place. We did get one child out. She is in college. She is way up north, and I restarted the clock. It is what it is. Hey, when you marry younger, when you get a trophy wife, you just got to live with it, right? You just got to go with the flow. And that's what
it just makes me feel old knowing that she's in college now. Like,
oh yes, you were hanging out over at the house.
Yeah,
we were young, we were enjoying ourselves, and now she's in college.
When you told me that, I was like, dang, I need to schedule my colonoscopy now.
Yes, you most certainly do. All right, let's start off with this. Who is in your college football playoff top 4 right now? Because there were some teams that did not look great yesterday, but do have big wins on the resume thus far. We got 3 weeks worth of data on these teams. As some, we got 4 weeks if you count week 0. I'll go ahead and tell you mine, and then we'll see if you disagree or if you just agree with all 4. I've got number 1, Georgia, who did not look good in that first half against South Carolina yesterday. I mean, putrid. 14-3 South Carolina at the half yesterday, but they did come out and outscore them 21. We'll talk about that. Florida State, I've got number 2, Texas 3, and I've got Michigan at number 4. And Michigan hasn't really played anybody with a pulse yet, but they've got the game at the big house at the end of the season. So I'm just going to kind of chalk up a W. I'm going to pencil in a W for right now. until Ohio State gets that offense rolling, which yesterday looked better. Who do you think should be in the top 4 here?
Actually, that's the exact same thing I had. Like Georgia didn't look great, but I mean, they're a pretty solid team. Texas is just rolling. I think they want to get back to, again, national powerhouse. They've been talking about it for, I don't know, 20 years now about them. Just they're back, whatever,
Yeah,
Michigan,
fine, basically.
yeah. And I think Michigan wants to, I think Ohio State is dipping down, or, Michigan's coming up. I think I'd like to fight for with Harbaugh, and if Florida State they're looking really good. I was back and forth between USC and Florida State. I was kind of back and forth on them, but I was like, you feel like USC is going to let me down. Like if I do that, like they're going to let me down somehow on it. Yeah.
If you're going to count on somebody, you might as well count on Mike Norvell, right? Yeah. That's how I'm going to go with it. I think I get the feeling this is going to be a wacky seat, like 2007.
Oh, I was just about to say 2007. That was the best year of college football. That was just.
We had like 7 or 8 number 2 teams that got beat. In that season. I mean, it was just constant. Ugh.
Oh,
yeah, this is going to be a crazy year. Because I mean, you saw Texas last night. I mean, they were up 10-7 in that second half, and they did again eventually pull away. And yes, the spot was definitely in Wyoming's favor, but Wyoming had a backup quarterback plan. Like,
yeah,
why were they in this game?
Yeah, they shouldn't even been close. I mean, Wyoming scored first. They're like, okay, they're hyped up. They're playing at home, right?
Yeah, but it was in Austin.
It was on Austin. Okay, hyped up. You want to come in, So yeah, okay, I'll give you the first touchdown. But Texas should have just rolled with them after that.
Yeah, should have. But it took a long time to get it going.
I swear, something with this third week that these teams just did not look good. Like some team. So I was thinking about that this morning. I was out on my run this morning. Is it something in school? Are they getting like, all right, now you're in school with studies and your schedule is off. The hype. What is going on? Like all these teams had this little that down.
It's interesting because I kind of thought the same thing. Like, what is going on? And some of it was you had bigger games last week, or you've got really big games coming next week. Some of it might be sandwich spots. It could be let down look aheads. It could be, all these different things. But man, even when, the dominant teams in the past would have look ahead spots or whatever, these situational spots in the season, they would still dominate their opponent. They just wouldn't look as crisp doing it. Now, I don't know that we have a dominant team, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it gets crazy.
Ooh. Yeah, nobody's just coming out and just rolling over, despite like the Alabama. Like if you were watching, it's just 60. Even USF fans were like, it's just going to be 64-14. We're going to get some points, but they're going to kill us. Like they were just admitting the students who are usually like the most like ridiculously like just like with their team thinking we can play. We're like, oh, they're just going to crush us. We're just going to have fun at this game.
Yes.
Like, whoa.
That was putrid. That game was awful. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. I do want to hit on this. Bruce Feldman reported yesterday on Big Noon Kickoff that the boosters and whatnot at Texas A&M have let him know, yes, Jimbo's buyout is $77 million. They said they got it. If he does not turn it around this season, then they absolutely are going to fire him at the end of this year, pay him his buyout, bring in somebody new because they got the money. That blew my mind. And part of what he said does make sense, right? Because Texas looks like Steve Sarkisian has got it turned around, right? They look like a national title contender.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only been on the job for 3 years. Jimbo Fisher's been there for 6. Why does he not have Texas A&M and in the same spot, right? And granted, the schedule's more difficult and blah, blah, blah. But look, Jimbo, it took until 2021 for them to beat Alabama. They had to beat them at home. It was a late field goal, whatever. Texas went into Bryant-Denny Stadium. Now, to me, we're talking apples and oranges, right? Because this version of Alabama is not what prior versions have been. But Texas went into Bryant-Denny Stadium and whooped Alabama. Now, A&M has seen somebody do that before. Johnny Manziel went in there, and they didn't whoop them, but they had a lead for the entire ball game, right? And again, that's another letdown spot, right? So Alabama was coming off the LSU game, but regardless, that was like 2012. It's been a while. A&M feels like they should be there, and now Texas is coming into the SEC next year. A&M does not want to get behind the 8 ball. If Jimbo can't do it, they're going to bring in somebody that can. And I think whenever you release something like that, whenever you leak it to a reporter, your decision has already been made. There's nothing that Jimbo can do to win back those fans, to win back those boosters. Do you agree with that? Like, am I crazy?
Oh, that's like the thing. Like wherever you work, what is that? Like, we're gonna put you on a progress or performance review. It's like you might as well, like, you've made your decision up. Okay,
Yes.
You're gonna let me go. And granted, I mean, $77 million. You can give me that much money and just tell me to leave. Yeah,
Jimbo might be good for that. You might be totally wasted. This crap is ridiculous. Why am I still dealing with this? I won a national championship. I had a Heisman Trophy winner at Florida State. Like, I came over and took these Cowboys' money, and I'm gonna go live on the ranch. And I don't need this shit. Like,
yeah, it didn't need it. You just take, okay, I can just go relax and I don't have to do this. He maybe do analyst stuff on SEC Network or ACC Network, whatever he wants to. Yeah,
I think it'll be great.
I don't see Texas A&M under him even getting out of the West.
No,
Like, you're not even going to get out of the West right now.
no, I don't think. Well, I mean, this year it's anybody's game. Although LSU looked really, really good yesterday. So
I don't even want to talk about that.
I didn't figure you did. I didn't figure you did.
Oh my gosh.
Let's go ahead and get to the games here. Let's talk about exactly what happened, and we will start off with let's see, write the times down. Missouri 30, Kansas State 27. And we'll go on and pop this thing on the screen here so you can see what we're looking at. This was a fun football game. I mean, what a game this was. I was a little bit shocked because all of my numbers said that Kansas State should win this pretty handily. Touchdown, 10 points, whatever. But I mean, you start looking at this thing, you start trying to figure out, okay, Missouri, like, they got talent, they got dudes. Man, they had a 61-yard field goal at the gun to win this in walk-off fashion. The kid's name was Harrison Mevis? Harrison Mevis? I had it on mute yesterday. But regardless, that kid, chunky kicker. I love chunky kickers. And he was a just baller. Him running around excited. He was ecstatic. He was going to have quite the night in Columbia. Luther Burden, LB3. He had 7 catches, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was that big 5-star that Eli Drinkwitz got last year. He showed out. Brady Cook, the quarterback, didn't make mistakes. That was a big, big difference in this game. And then you look at it, the difference in the game, both teams missed a field goal, and the one turnover that Kansas State had early in the game led to a Missouri field goal, which ended up being the final margin. I like this game. I mean, you see the total yardage here. You see yards per play, like all that. It's kind of even, although yards per play, I mean, Missouri was just explosive as you could possibly get. And then you start looking at this, and it was wild. What would you think about what happened in Columbia yesterday?
Missouri came to play. That was it. Like, I like, that's another thing. I like Kansas State. Thought, you're gonna come in here with Missouri. Missouri, you just gotta run them over. They kept the energy up the whole time, and it felt like Kansas State was just kind of scrambling at times. Like, we were not ready. We were not ready for this team that was here. We weren't ready for them, and Missouri just never let up.
That Kansas State secondary, I I don't know what, I mean, 356 passing yards. That was wild on 23 completions. That you got me. Like they just did not have anybody that could line up with, Theo Weiss, the Oklahoma transfer, Luther Burden, Cooper. 4 receptions, 79 yards. He had a long of 41. Look at the long plays here. 47, 26, 41, 27, 42. They had a 36-yard run. Like Missouri just hit their explosive plays, and Kansas State couldn't do anything about it. So it was a pretty even game, but let me ask you this question. Is it possible that Missouri is the second best team in the SEC East behind Georgia?
I don't know, maybe second, maybe third.
Who would you have above?
Maybe Tennessee. Okay.
It's a bad day to say Tennessee.
Yeah, the Tennessee or Florida. Watching that game, like I think we'll talk about this. Maybe are we going to talk about that? Maybe
yes, we're going to talk about Florida Tennessee here in a minute.
Florida, like where is this Florida team? Where did that Tennessee team go? And then like Missouri, is Missouri going to be able to keep this up going forward into SEC play? Like
that is the question. That is the question. It's going to be fun to watch this. I think the SEC East is going to be beneath Georgia. I think everybody else is wide open. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's usually how it is. It's always like 4 teams like that are just okay. Somehow the SEC East is just going to go crazy. We don't know who's going to come out of the East.
Oh yeah. Packer 910 jumps in. He said, "Please keep fading North Carolina." Okay. I mean, I faded North Carolina with App State, and like that worked out well. I didn't touch this Minnesota game, but wait, that wasn't even a game. We're barely going to hit on that, but we'll get to it. Let's talk about this. Let's go on and hit on the game that ended late last night. Colorado 43, Colorado State 35. This one in double overtime. This game was chippy as hell, man.
Oh,
chippy as hell. I mean, Travis Hunter went to the hospital off a late hit, just a dirty hit. I never knew Jay Norvell when he was at Nevada to coach dirty players or to let his players play dirty. But man, there were so many late hits and just everything else. It was disgusting, but also kind of entertaining to watch. I mean, everything about that game was wild. What were your initial thoughts on that ball game?
So a rivalry game, like everything I always feel like gets thrown out the window. The better team or whatever, it's a rivalry. You're throwing that all out. It doesn't really matter. Players are going to play up. They're going to be ready for it. All the hype into it coming in, the Colorado State players want to show up. Colorado, we're tired of hearing about them, and all this. We're coming to play. We're not going to take our foot off the gas. But I think from what I was watching, what they were talking, like Norvell.
Yeah.
No,
Jay
okay.
Norvell. Yeah.
Jay Norvell. Okay. I get names wrong so often. Yeah. Like he said he had respect for Deion. Like he had respect for him. And I'm also more like Deion said a little something about meeting after the game. I'm like, one, Deion is a pro athlete in the Hall of Fame. And you're not going to really mess with that man like on that level. Like you're not like, okay, I'm thinking about, but they were ready to play. I think they really wanted to silence them. I'm also thinking too, okay, now you got 2 teams that trained and play at altitude. Maybe that helped Colorado last week with Nebraska, because Nebraska is like what is barely at sea level.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been in Nebraska, it is flat. You can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Like it is flat. So maybe that was the altitude. If you ever been there, the altitude gets you. But like, okay, you met another team that's training up there as well. But
I think the way that I look at this game is any other team that has a competent offensive coach and a competent quarterback they are going to be able to score on Colorado's defense. Yes, Colorado was 3-0, but they have given up a bunch of points, at least to TCU and here, 35 here. Now, granted, some of that was a defensive score and whatever else, but I don't trust this Colorado defense. There's not a whole lot of depth on that defensive line. They don't have a ton of playmakers on defense, and man, going into Pac-12 play, they're gonna have to deal with some dudes.
It seemed like they were hitting the receivers wide open and just wide open for these huge plays. Like, I know you got some speed
Travis
up
Hunter in there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad juju. Bad juju. Bill L jumped in and said, Matt, it's a PIP, Performance Improvement Program. Josh jumped in. He said, SEC championship game, LSU 28, Georgia 24. Y'all heard it here first. And he said, Josh said they're about to get humbled. I think he's talking about Colorado here. Yes, I think Colorado next week. I'm waiting to see what the line is. But, man, I think Oregon could put it on them. I think Oregon could really put it on them this week. Travis Hunter, by the way, is going to be out for at least according to Coach Prime, a couple weeks, maybe. So he won't be playing in this one. He won't be playing against USC. Bill said Colorado will be challenged by USC, Oregon, and Utah. Oh, they'll definitely be challenged against Utah. They ain't seen a line like that. Like, it's not even close. Not even close. You look at some of these numbers. Colorado State had 9 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. They were teeing off. And don't get me wrong, Colorado had that on them as well. But Shedeur Sanders, to put up the numbers that he has done, and that comeback, man, 7 plays, 98 yards for a touchdown with like 36 seconds left, 98-yard drive in like a minute 30 to get that thing knocked out. Cheers to that. But again, 4 turnovers. You can see it here. 4 turnovers that led directly to 10 points for Colorado. Colorado State turned the ball over too many times. Now, one of them, obviously, at the end of the ball game in that double overtime period when they threw that pick. But, yeah, the line play for Colorado is still not there. Packer jumps in and said Buffs could beat USC in a shootout. That's going to be an interesting one, right? Like that, I'm curious about that because USC's defense is still not really up to snuff. But I mean, their offense clicks so much better than Colorado's. Whew. I don't know, Huey. What do you think there? What is? I don't know. I think USC's like worlds better.
Yeah, you've got some guys that have been playing that. Kind of looking like the coaching and the guys that you brought there. Like again, the guys that Dion brought in from other schools, you're still building, you're still doing that. But like USC, you just built upon experience and stuff like that. I will say that there was something I saw on, I think, TikTok or something this weekend, that it was Dion at practice just getting on somebody and telling them, he's like, this coach is telling you what it takes to get to the NFL because this guy played in the NFL for that long. So he does tell the player, like, you need to work and you need to do that. But yeah, this looks like when you get into it and you're going to have to go time after again, and everyone's aware of you now. Everybody, you've got your game film. Everybody knows what you do. They understand, okay, if we just keep doing this, we're just going to hammer. But I will say Sanders, the quarterback, even when they're down, he's still playing hard. He's still looking good. I did like watching him play.
I thought they were going to put up a ton of points here. A ton of points. And 42 is, I mean, that's enough. But like only 28 points in regulation, kind of surprising. They had to get a 2-point conversion there. Let's see. Drew jumped in. He said, Utah is the only one of these teams that has a defense. Yes, 100%. Although, okay, so Oregon has dudes on defense. They got dudes. UCLA's defense has looked pretty good thus far. There's some spots here where, I don't know, this Colorado schedule is going to get tricky. This is incredible how much talk we're having about a team that went 1-11. There's so many people that want to chime in on it that it's just this back and forth. Dion has brought in so many, just, I'm not going to say casuals, but like because that kind of comes off negative. People that normally wouldn't care about college football, they suddenly care. I mean, you saw Tom Brady, you saw LeBron James tweeting about it last night. Just constant, just this barrage of like celebrity that cares about a Colorado game. Like these people would have never cared in the past about a Colorado game.
No. There was something I watched. Flemo Raps talked about that Dion brought like $100 million to the local economy.
Whew.
And like they're selling out of their sweatshirts and the glass. They're selling all this stuff. I mean, like, okay, we are like SEC. We are SEC football fans. I wear the colors of the schools I've went to for my undergrad and graduate stuff because I went there. I'm going to support them. You've liked Alabama since before you were born, so you get a pass. But it's like that it's like, why are you going to wear that Colorado thing when like he leaves and they go back in the tank? Like, are you still going to like, oh,
it's the thing, man. The bandwagons are what make people money. That's
Okay.
what makes TV networks money. That's what makes these merch companies money, etc. People love to support a winner. And it's the same thing at Memphis or at South Alabama or whatever, right? Like when they have a really good year, all of a sudden the stadium's packed.
Yeah.
When they're losing, there's nobody there. But when you go to an SEC stadium, it don't matter if that team is winning or losing. They're going to have a full house. Like, it doesn't matter. Josh jumped in. He said, I watched one Colorado game in my life before this year. He said he's watched all of them this year. Bill said, I tried to get a hotel 2 weeks from now in Boulder. They want 600 plus at mid-level motels. It's mayhem. Hey, how about this question? And we've spent way too long on this, but how long do you think they keep him?
I'm wondering this. If he's just raising his stock and bounces to something else. Like,
well,
I mean,
is his stock going to be so high that Colorado cannot afford to keep him?
See, I'm wondering that. Does a good program like, we'll say like an Alabama or USC or a Florida, do you want a guy like this who's really not proven to be like a winning coach because you want to win? Like, we want conference titles. We want
to win.
Yeah. Are you going to bring that guy in, or is he do better at these mid-level teams of like, we just get attention, we go up and we beat some big teams a year, 8-win season, 9-win season. We do great. We go to a really good bowl game and everyone just loves the school. Is it more like you need to sit in that realm on it?
It's a good question. There was a lot of hype around the Auburn job for him. Now, I mean, they went and got Hugh Freeze. Looks like things are going to be okay there.
Oh, yeah.
But, man.
He should go to Vandy.
Hey, what I'm thinking. So, everybody knows that I've talked about Lane Kiffin is going to be Saban's replacement, which Josh jumped in. He said Saban's replacement. He's talking about Dion. But if Lane Kiffin goes to Alabama, which the odds of that happening are slim to none, right? But I feel like it's a possibility. If he goes to Alabama, that Ole Miss job comes open. I mean, Dion was at Jackson State. Jackson, Mississippi is where a bunch of the Ole Miss boosters are located. I think they all probably know each other.
Yeah, and Ole Miss has that kind of like that swagger to them. You get players that just kind of want that.
Oh, and Ole Miss would love the hype. They have loved having Lane Kiffin, right?
Yes,
because everybody talks about him. I mean, this is Deion Sanders is Lane Kiffin on steroids.
Oh yeah,
it's wild. So either way,
I actually saw a kid this morning wearing a Colorado shirt. It was a grad school shirt, so I'll give him a pass. He probably went there, but I'm like, dang, this morning, and I'm in
he might have got it at
Texas. Oh, that's true. That's true.
You know,
he did look like he did look like he went to the engineering school. I'll just say that.
You give him a little props on that. I like it.
Yeah, look at him like, yeah, I can tell where you went. Yeah, that's your department.
We just spent 12 minutes talking about Colorado. Unbelievable. Let's move to this one. Florida 29, Tennessee 16. My notes on this: Joe Milton has issues. How long do they wait to go to Nico Iamaleava? I hope I said that right. But Nico, we'll just call him Nico. How long do they wait to go to the 5-star stud that they've paid $8 million, right? Did you watch this game? Did you see the interception that Joe Milton threw in the second quarter?
Oh, the Hail Mary?
Whatever the hell it was.
I think I looked at my phone buzzed and looked down and I was like, did they just punt?
That's what it looked like.
Because it just was just like,
I could not figure out who he was throwing to. And I know that he was getting hit at the same time, but nothing about that play made any kind of sense. And this is what happens, right? It's in here. We're going to pull up the stats on the screen, but this is the Joe Milton that we all know, right? This is he has no touch on the ball. Whether he's throwing it 50 yards down the field or he's throwing a 2-yard out pass, it's got the same zip on it. He's throwing 100 miles an hour. I mean, it's crazy. Tennessee could not run the football here. And the numbers look okay. I mean, they averaged 3.7 yards per rush at the end of the night. But they could not run the ball, and they couldn't stop the run. That was the biggest thing that I found in the first half, right? At the second half, it felt like Florida was doing everything they could to just get out of there. Once they got that big lead, they were up 26-7 at the half. They had that big lead, and they were sitting on it. Like Billy Napier, Sunbelt Billy was squatting on a lead. He was doing his thing. And that's 100% what they did in the second half. If you want to look at, let's see, comparisons, we'll talk about the quarters. All right, so the second half, Tennessee outscored them 9-3 in the second half, had 271 yards to only 68 for Florida. Florida ran the ball 21 times for 2.3 yards per carry, and they threw the ball 4 times. This is how you sit on a lead, right? When Tennessee made all those mistakes in the second quarter, they said, oh, we got this. These new clock rules are going to be perfect for us. 21 runs to 4 passes. Unbelievable. What were your thoughts on this ball game? Because this was Graham Mertz looked pretty good. They didn't ask him to do too much. This is what Florida could be capable of if they're not making mistakes, right?
Yeah. I was just shocked. Okay, Tennessee. Okay, you're playing at Florida, you Little Rock. Oh, where are you? And then at the end of the game, it seemed like they just gave up. Nothing they could do. It was just nothing. I will say
it's nuts.
That big a big defensive lineman for Florida. Was that his first big play with Florida? Because the games I've watched with him, they talk about him. I'm like, he gets pushed around for being 439 pounds, but he finally got in there. I was like, well, there you go.
Well, there you go.
Okay, he did something on the punt throw there, but it just seemed like Tennessee just nothing could go right. It's like in basketball when it doesn't matter if you're just every shot you throw up just boom bounces off the rim. It was just nothing they could do worked. It just
Bill jumped in, by the way. He said they need to target my man Brew McCoy more. Man, they targeted him 8 times. He had 5 receptions, which was more than anybody else. Had 94 yards. He was their leading receiver. They just they couldn't do anything. They couldn't move the football. Packer jumped in. Milton and Milroe are the same quarterback. No, sir. I would much rather have Joe Milton on the Alabama football team than I would Jalen Milroe. And here's the thing. I think Milroe is a special talent as far as a skill position guy. Wide receiver, running back, kick returner, anything. I just think he makes really bad decisions in the pocket. And it's not that Milton has done any better, per se. I think he's done a little bit better. But at least, maybe I'm nuts. Maybe they are the same guy. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Huey, what do you think here?
I don't know. I didn't play, but for me, I don't know. Is Florida just playing that good, or are they just getting just having a good game?
That's the question, right? That's the question, because this is what they're capable of. But you ask Graham Mertz to do a little too much, and all of a sudden those interceptions. I mean, we saw it against Utah. Are Utah and Tennessee that different? Especially Utah with the 3rd string quarterback. I mean, I don't think so. But this is you get a Florida that makes mistakes, and it can absolutely snowball on them. but you get a Florida where, hey, they've got a lead and they can just squat on it. Well, then you got a different ball game. So Florida, I think Florida could beat anybody left on their schedule. That includes Georgia, at least after what we saw yesterday. But they could also get beat by like 3 touchdowns. So this is going to be such a weird year. Oh, it's going to be such a weird year. Let's move off of that one. Let's talk about the team that I just mentioned here, Georgia. Georgia got a win, although it was not in clean fashion by any stretch of the imagination. Georgia 24, South Carolina 14. And look, I don't even know really what to think about this. We'll pull it up on the screen here. They were down 14-3 at the half. Spencer Rattler was dealing. Juice Wells caught that touchdown pass, hurt his foot. He's out immediately the rest of the game. Georgia can't do anything in the first half. And then the second half, they come out, they scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. They miss a field goal. They score another touchdown in the fourth quarter. South Carolina cannot move the ball on offense. The 2 interceptions that Rattler threw were on the last 2 drives of the game when he was pressing. They were trying to come back. Georgia finally got, a little bit of a wake-up call, I guess. Because they did not look good in that first half at all. What did you see in this one?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, is this the Georgia team that everyone's going to be saying three-peat, just going to run the table? I wasn't worried that South Carolina was going to win the game because they just didn't look like, okay, South Carolina's going to get this upset. Georgia's going to turn it around at some point. They may squeak it out, but it did seem like, like South Carolina just couldn't keep it up. They just got too nervous.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't deal that knockout blow, right?
No, they couldn't do it. In Georgia, maybe it is. That third week slump, they just dropped down a little bit. Okay, we're not going to do too well. And, they'll put a foot in their rear and they're going to do great.
The total yardage here, made it seem like it was way worse than it was. This was a tight game in the third quarter. But Georgia outgained them 458-309. You look at game on paper, and you see success rate 58% for Georgia to 38% for South Carolina. Georgia can have these successful drives and everything else, but if they're not putting points on the board, it doesn't matter. This was still only a 10-point game. And while Georgia did basically dominate, especially in the second half, this was interesting because you didn't expect this out of South Carolina. I think this is a little bit of progress for South Carolina because their offensive line has been putrid this season. They gave up the same amount of tackles for loss to Georgia as they did to Furman last week, which is mind-blowing. But North Carolina absolutely ate them up in week 1. And I think this is progress because when you hold Georgia to the same amount of TFLs as Furman, I think you're maybe moving in the right direction. They looked hyped, man. Shane Beamer had that bunch hyped up. But yeah, like you see here, tackles for loss generated 6 for South Carolina, 7 for Georgia. All of Georgia's were on passing downs. So, okay. This is going to be interesting to pay attention to. If South Carolina's starting to get a little bit better. By the way, I think Spencer Rattler, NFL quarterback. I think he's an NFL guy. I know he's been around forever, but he may.
I was kind of wondering that too. I'm like, isn't he like 30 now?
He's on up there, but I think he's going to get drafted. I think he's going to be really good. So we shall see. I am spending too long on these games.
This did have one thing that got me as a physical therapist. So the receiver got hurt. The coach came out and go, yeah, I think he broke a bone in his foot, but don't worry, it's on the same side as he had the surgery. And it's like, that's not a good thing. And why are you talking about that?
Yeah, tell me the Juice Wells situation here. What exactly was that?
So I didn't see exactly what the injury was, but that's from what I was saying. They had a screw in his foot, maybe this Franck injury. I didn't look it up. I had just read it. had it on and he said that. I'm like, that's not a good thing. He broke a bone on the same side as with the surgery. That's not a good thing.
Ah,
And foot
I hate that.
surgeries are
That kid's
very hit or
electric,
miss.
man.
Yeah.
That kid is electric, and I hate that who knows how long he'll be out. I'll get you to go back and check out the footage and whatnot, see what you
Yeah,
can
I'll
see.
look at all that.
So, and then next week we'll talk a little more about it, depending on what South Carolina does next week. Let's see. Let's talk about another SEC team. BYU goes to Fayetteville, and they get the W, 38-31 over those Razorbacks. Sam Pittman, what are you doing, my man? This was a weird one. I mean, that's the easiest way you can say it. You look at the total yardage here, 424 to 281. They outgained them by over 140 yards. Yards per play, outgained them by basically a yard per play. The biggest issue, I think, for Arkansas was they had 2 turnovers to only 1 for BYU and penalties. Arkansas had 14 penalties at home for 125 yards. BYU had 7 for only 45 yards. This was the game plan for BYU. They called an incredible game. They had guys open. They called flea flickers and just end arounds and found ways. I mean, it was mind blowing to see them in situational spots where they could actually they made plays when they mattered the most, and they didn't in other spots. The success rate here, BYU 30% success rate. Arkansas was only 37. Explosive plays, 4% for Arkansas, 9% for BYU. This was crazy. What did you think about this one?
I thought Arkansas was it the opening kickoff? Like they took it back, or
it was. I don't think it was the opening kickoff.
Oh, it was early in the game. Early in the game.
Because they were up 14-0 in like the first 4 minutes.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Arkansas is just going to run away with it, and it just seemed sacks and turnovers and sloppy play, and it's like, whoa, what's going on?
Hey, that pick that KJ Jefferson threw in the second half, I can't remember if it was third quarter. Either way, did you see the interception they just threw to the middle of the field? It looked like he was throwing to somebody. There was not an Arkansas receiver within 15 miles of this guy. I would say feet, but like there was nobody around the BYU defender. It's like he threw it directly to the guy.
Yeah, just I will say BYU is always interesting to watch because the guys are like 30, and so they're very disciplined. And like I think that always benefits them in like really tight games. It's like they know, okay, stick to the plan. Just not a lot of penalties, not a lot of dumb penalties, and they just keep at it.
I love Kalani Sitake. Absolutely. And Slovis in this game was okay. The numbers on him, 13 out of 25, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. He just didn't make mistakes. Like he was pretty good. And so, but they didn't really run the ball. No. Like at sack adjusted rushing yards, 95 for BYU. Like typically you think of BYU as having like, as you said, like the big 30-year-olds on the offensive and defensive lines and whatever else. Like Arkansas had 196 sack adjusted rushing yards. Like they were rolling 5.6 yards per rush and couldn't get a W at home. Just mind blowing.
So, BYU's got that left tackle that they were talking all about, whatever his name was. I can't think of it. He had like a real long Samoan name, and they kept talking about it. That guy was a house.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Like BYU, we expect to be pretty good some years, but like Arkansas housed them last year.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Arkansas's coaching staff, right? Dan Enos, the new offensive coordinator. They brought in the guy, what's the guy's name? Is it Travis? Somebody as their new Travis Williams, maybe as their new defensive coordinator. I think they kind of miss Barry Odom a little bit, but either way, we did have a question. Josh jumped in. Is Pittman on the hot seat? 100%. 100%. He's on the hot seat. Yes, they don't deal with this. Jerry Jones will go hire somebody else. It'll be just fine. Drew jumped in. BYU played football, got the ball to their playmakers in creative ways. Yes, they had really fun play calls. Really fun play calls. All right. West Virginia, 17-6 in the backyard brawl against Pitt. We're not going to spend long on this, but I do want to pull it up on the screen and talk about the fact that this was the most man ball game I think that I have ever seen in my life. This was exactly what Pat Narduzzi wants. I don't think it was at all what Neil Brown wants, but you see the total yardage, 211 to 211. You look at the number of rushes. You had 11 passes for West Virginia and 51 rushes. And for Pitt, who was down for most of the game, they only threw the ball 20 times and they ran it 36. West Virginia ran the ball 51 times and only threw it 11. Neil Brown was an air raid protege. Like this, I think this is great for Neil Brown because you had to have a win like this. But man, there are problems at Pitt, and I wonder if Phil Dracovic is hurt because he didn't look right. I mean, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, 8 of 20 passing, 81 yards. It just didn't look good. What did you take from the backyard brawl?
Well, first I was surprised that he got a rivalry game this early in the season on it. I'm like, what are we doing with this? But yeah, West Virginia, they were just slow, and like you said, just running the ball all over the place. Like,
and Pitt was slower.
Yeah, and it was just like
it was mind blowing that this game was on ABC. Like this was and I know it's a rivalry game and everybody loves the backyard brawl, but what a terrible primetime game.
Yeah, it just wasn't like super exciting. I mean, if you're a football fan, yes, but
yeah,
outside of like, oh, okay, I feel like if Pitt just picked it up, they would have won.
Yeah, basically, like it was putrid. It was just putrid. Let's move over to this one. Another one we're not going to spend a lot of time on. Alabama 17, South Florida 3. The only thing that I'm going to say, so there was a weather delay in this one by like an hour.
Were there 2?
No, it was just one. It was one, and it was an hour long. But it was a normal Florida weather delay, right? It was apocalypse to sunny and paradise weather, right? So, that one, this game is it's atrocious. The quarterback. Tell me this, Matt. What do you think of the Alabama coaching situation, or not coaching, the Alabama quarterback situation?
It's just not dominant, and they keep okay. We're gonna go with this guy. We're gonna go with that guy. Like, can you not just get a good quarterback? Like,
apparently, it's harder than you would think.
They got it. I mean, I think. Well, I used to joke that Alabama didn't have enough on their payroll to get a kicker, so I guess they're giving maybe the kicker too much, and they got to up the salary cap for it to get a quarterback in. But
they thought they could win without a quarterback, I guess.
Yeah, I just thought this just show up and like we'll just run them over, and it's like you got to have a guy that can throw the ball.
Yes,
I mean, for his dominant, you still got to have. I'm not going to say an average, like a pretty good quarterback.
You got to have somebody that can throw the ball, that can get rid of the football. There was no Milroe in this one. He didn't play. Tyler Buckner started. He was 5 of 14 for 34 yards. I mean, it just absolutely awful. And when you don't have a guy that can get rid of the ball, you can't run it either, right? Because, and you and I were talking about this before, the offensive line can't do anything against an 8-man box. I mean, they're bringing safeties down on rocket fuel constantly, and there's nothing that you can do to get past the line of scrimmage if you're running the ball. Like, you can say that you'll run over them, but there's got to be, when it's 8 on 5 or 8 on 3, whatever it is that the tackles are doing, there's nothing you can do. I was so irritated. I do think Ty Simpson can work, but he's another one of those guys that is holding the ball too long. Bryce Young had a superhuman ability last year to be able to see blindside rushers before they were coming, right? It's almost like he had eyes in the back of his head. Ty Simpson didn't have that at all yesterday. He got absolutely ransacked multiple times, like a rag doll, man. He got hit from the back a couple of different times, and I thought he wasn't going to be able to get up because it's that whiplash thing where he gets hit in the back and his head flops back.
Yeah.
It's whew. But you got to have that ability as a quarterback to be able to see who's coming from your blind side. You got to be able to see it. Like just in your peripheral, something. You can't just completely turn and be watching downfield constantly. You got to have the ability to see everywhere. And they just ain't got a guy. They don't have a quarterback. I'll tell you this. The guy that should be starting for them this year, Dylan Lonergan. He's a freshman. Saban does not like to play freshmen. But they may have to. Like they may not have an option because he's the only one that can throw the ball. So I think Simpson probably starts next week against Ole Miss. But I think Kiffin's been waiting on this one. I think Ole Miss might house them next week. But that Bama defense is still really good. But man, they get worn out when they're on the field for that long.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. I mean, this was a game to think about. Like, okay, Alabama's just going to show up. You know, it's going to be 35 points in the first half. It's going to be nothing. And like, what was it? Okay, maybe weather delay, but no, it just didn't look good. And I mean, and also the thing, a team like USF, you have nothing to lose playing Alabama, going all out, doing whatever. You're not going to play for a national title. You're not going to do. You could, just go all out. Just expose them like that. Just go crazy.
It was nuts.
And I feel like that again, like the players as well have a chip on the shoulder. Like, well, you never even looked at me, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to put myself on your game tape, and show you what you missed out on.
And they just did not really get a chance to do it. Like they never opened up the playbook. It felt like, and so very frustrating as an Alabama fan to watch just a debacle, just absolute debacle in Tampa. But hey, we've all heard of Florida man before. That kind of thing happens down there. Let's kind of rapid fire through some of this stuff right quick. We'll go through the SEC first. We'll pop that back on the screen so everybody can kind of see what we're looking at. And I'm going to start with Ole Miss. Got a big win over Georgia Tech, 48-23, 24 points in the fourth quarter. They finally got that thing humming. Jackson Dart, 14 carries, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was pretty good throwing the ball too. However, Quinshon Judkins had like 36 yards rushing in this game. And he didn't do well against Tulane last week. They were able to find other ways to run the ball. But man, that dude was absolute money last year, and he just ain't got it this year. What did you watch any of this one?
I saw a little bit of it, and I was like, oh, okay, Ole Miss going to pull away in this game. But
and it did.
Yeah. So are they looking forward to Alabama? Like, let's just get this win and get out of here.
Maybe. I mean,
and also Kiffin's sneaky. Like, is he also like, we're not going to do the good stuff and give any tape to Alabama? No,
not at all. Not at all. He doesn't want to do that. LSU 41-14 on State. We're not going to spend long on it. Jaden Daniels was awesome. 30 out of 40 passing for, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 touchdowns running. Mississippi State, I think, might have a Will Muschamp problem. I think that's what the Cover 3 podcast said. You got a defensive guy with a roster that he wants to play man ball. He wants to be able to run the ball. You have a roster built for finesse. We've seen this happen time and time again. When you have a passing team that runs the air raid, etc., your offensive linemen know how to do a specific thing, and that's it. Like it's insane. Josh jumped in. How about Malik Neighbors? 13 targets, 13 carries, or 13 receptions, and he had like 240 some odd yards, whatever it was. Just bananas. Tell me about this. Tell me about Mississippi State. I'm going to hop off for 2 seconds, and I'll be right back. But I want you to talk about Mississippi State. Tell everybody. Tell everybody.
Oh, he left me with it. Oh, anyway. I was really worried with State about when, the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach, hoping that Zach was going to say, okay, you're going to keep that same thing. You have something going good. You've got these receivers there. Like you said, the offensive line, like that's who you brought in. That's the guy. Yeah, break. That's the guys that you brought in to do that. And then you're totally going to switch over to a running team and it's unbelievable like that. Like, and I feel sad with Will Rogers. Like, what was it last week? 12, 14 passes or something. When he went from last year, he was like 44 or something passing, per game. Yeah, I'll tell him that too. Yeah, no pee breaks during this. But that was brutal. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what and I agree with that too. When you go from something so dramatic as the air raid and you want to go totally switch over to like, we're just going to be a power running team. Your guys aren't ready for that. And like when Leach came in, he talked about like the quarterback talked about how often he's out there over the summer throwing 100 passes a day to get his shoulder there. And then, yeah, you bring in these other guys. Okay, we're totally going to go against that. And it was ridiculous. And it was just brutal. It was just brutal watching that. Yes, like LSU just did whatever they wanted to do.
It's absolutely brutal. It was awful. I love this. Bill jumps in, pee break, and Double O'Neill said, no breaks, hold it. Y'all, I have a newborn at the house. Like,
I will say this about Brian Kelly. He wants a national title. Like, I think he wants a national title for his trophy case. It's about the only thing he doesn't have.
That's why he went to LSU.
Yeah, LSU can possibly get him that because LSU can get some players. LSU has always been able to get some players. You just have to be able to coach them.
Yes. Packer jumped in. He said Wisconsin trying to make the opposite switch. Whew. Yeah. Longo will take whatever you got, and he will. That's the fun thing about him. He tries to make the best offense with the players that he has. And right now, like I thought Tanner Mordecai was going to be better than this, but regardless, no, State. They've got a defensive guy that wants to play man ball, but you have a roster full of experienced dudes that know how to do a specific thing. And you went out and brought in a guy that runs a pro style offense. And it's disgusting to watch. Now, obviously, that defense should have been better anyway. But if your defensive coach can't keep LSU from doing that, that's a problem. That's a big time problem. Josh said if Coach O can win a natty, BK will at least make the dance sooner or later. Well, I mean, he made the dance. He made the dance twice at Notre Dame. Like, no problem. So, yeah, either way. Let's talk about this. Oh, Vanderbilt. What are you doing? 40-37 loss at UNLV, and it probably should have been worse because they put up 20 points in the fourth quarter. Like, I mean, what? Just absolutely insane. I mean, what is happening? I don't know. I was hoping that Vanderbilt would be a little bit better. Kentucky looked good. Auburn looked good. A&M looked good. And then we talked about the other ones. We talked a whole lot about the SEC. Let's move on. We're going to go a little past an hour. Is that good with you, Matt?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Just a touch past. The Big Ten. Indiana, I kind of liked what they did. And, yeah, they lost to Louisville. And I bet on Louisville at -9.5. Indiana, I thought was okay. I think they got a quarterback now. The defensive guys that they brought in, like, okay, I can get down with this. I like Tom Allen. I like what he does there. I thought that when they had Kane Womack, who's at South Alabama now, and we'll hit on South Alabama in a little bit. But him and Kalen DeBoer, who is now the Washington coach, he had those guys as his coordinators in 2020. They were awesome. And now, like we saw last year, they were a debacle. But, I mean, he used the portal and got some dudes. They look okay. Like, I think they can win some. Like, not a bunch. I mean, they're 1-2, but, your losses are to Louisville and Ohio State. So, yeah, I was kind of impressed with them. Maryland. Did you watch the game on Friday night against Virginia?
I watched some of that. I had it on, and they were handling Virginia pretty well.
So Virginia goes up 14-0 in this game. And my immediate reaction is, okay, my numbers know nothing. Like, obviously, my model is completely broken. What is going on here? And then you see steady, like 7 points in the first, 7 points in the second, 7 points in the third. And fourth quarter, they put up 3 touchdowns because they finally got some Virginia mistakes. Baby Tua, that if he was at Alabama right now, remember, he's an Alabama transfer. If he was at Alabama right now, Alabama would be a national title contender. And they are not right now because they ain't got a dude like that. He's awesome. Like, he's just a dude. So I enjoyed watching. I think they've got a chance to be really, really good this year. I think Maryland can be really good. Penn State, they exercised the Illinois Demons. took some mistakes from Illinois. Luke Altmaier, okay, not great at quarterback for Illinois. And that defense, they still got some dudes on the defensive line. But, I mean, Penn State just kind of methodical in getting a 17-point win here. Like, did what they were supposed to do. It was a very Big Ten ball game. That game on Fox's Big Noon Kick or whatever screamed Big Ten. Like,
Oh yeah.
it was pretty brutal. Absolutely brutal. You want to move to the Pac-12?
Sounds good.
All right. Pac-12. And I'm going to start with this. Well, we'll talk about North Carolina in just a little bit in the ACC. Washington, 41-7. Now, I don't want to spend long on the Mel Tucker stuff. I thought maybe the players would step up and play big, because how dare you try and run our coach out of town or whatever. No, they did not show up at all. This was 35-0 at the half. It was so here's the question. Washington has played a not very good Boise. They played like an FCS school or Tulsa last week and just throttled them. And then they play Michigan State right after their coach gets suspended. I think they're really good. I don't know that they're really good. Like, we're going to find out a lot this week. This week 4 is like the Pac-12 showcase week. Like, it's this week's. Have you seen the schedule for this week, by the way?
No, I have not. Not this.
For the Pac-12. Here, let's click on that and see if it'll load up for us. UCLA, Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Oregon State, Washington State. USC is going to absolutely house Arizona State, and Cal and Washington. I think we're going to have some good games this week.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Oh, yeah. So, but week 3, so Washington, I think, is really good. Utah, Weber State is a phenomenal FCS team. So that one, pretty close, 31-7, but also Weber State's really good. So, and they went with Nate Johnson at quarterback. They just a modified Wildcat. Like, that's all they ran, and it was perfect. He was really good. I think they might have Cam Rising back for UCLA next week, so keep an eye on that one. Oregon State just kind of toyed with San Diego State. Like, they were up 12-3 at the half and won 26-9 at whatever. We talked about Colorado already. Washington State, I told you about that offense coordinator, didn't I? Ben Arbuckle?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, he's got Cam Ward absolutely cooking right now. UCLA looked good against a FCS team. Cal, Idaho, another one of those good FCS teams. McCoy, the quarterback for Idaho, I think he is a candidate to transfer to a big time, like, P5 school.
Idaho dropped down.
Idaho dropped down. Yeah, this has been years ago.
Jeez, I've been out of touch on that.
Sacramento State got their revenge on their ex-coach, and they beat Stanford 30-23. Of course, Troy Taylor was their coach, and he won, national championships at the FCS level or played for them, one or the other. But was really good at Sacramento State, good enough to get the Stanford job, And then Sacramento State beats Stanford in his first year on the job. So, and then Arizona State. I mean, 29-0 to Fresno at home. They, without Jaden Rashada, they ain't got a prayer. I mean, they don't have a prayer. This team is awful. They got a bunch of injuries on both offense and defense. Kenny Dillingham is up against it in year one. They are all kinds of bad. And you saw that really by watching how bad Oklahoma State got beat, which we'll hit on again here in just a minute. Oklahoma State, they got trashed at home by South Alabama. But Oklahoma State handled Arizona State by 2 touchdowns last week. So that's a bad football team. In Arizona, 31-10 over UTEP. Like Arizona now 2-1. Probably should have won that Mississippi State game last week, but is what it is. So we'll move ahead. All right. So the ACC. Let's scroll through this, and we'll just hit on the P5 for today. Louisville look good, 3-0. Obviously, I already talked about that, but Indiana impressed me a little bit. Syracuse got a big win over Purdue, wherever that game is. There we go, 35-20. I think Syracuse could be really, really good. Like Garrett Schrader, former Mississippi State quarterback, 25 carries, 195 yards, 4 touchdowns. Like Jason Beck is the offensive coordinator. He was the quarterback's coach under Robert Anae. He knows what to do with these quarterbacks, man. And Drew jumps in. He said, Rocky Long defense. Yes. They lost Tony White. He went over to Nebraska with Matt Rule. Dude, Rocky Long is the one that taught Tony White everything he knows. This defense was tailored for him. And he came in. He is just absolutely dealing right now on defense. Syracuse is a good ball club. Did you see anything on this one?
I did not watch that one. I saw it on I saw it on there, but I don't know who else was playing at the same time, and I had that one up. I was like, oh, Syracuse. I may start watching them now. I've been disappointed in the past when I've watched them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they got the coordinators right now, though. I think they got and look, Dino Babers gets the most out of that team. That's a tough job. I mean, that's so difficult. Like that's supposed to be a Big East school. They're not supposed to be competing in the ACC. So, the fact that they're 3-0, they opened up last year, I think 5-0 before they played Clemson. They'll do the same thing here. They'll beat some teams they're not supposed to, and it's because they're well coached. They got some dudes, but Rutgers beat Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is a debacle. Grant Wells is out, and it's not just him. They got a bunch of injuries. So Virginia Tech, I mean, that's Brent Pry after this, his post-game press conference, just he's selling all the stuff that you have to when you don't have a good football team and you know it, right? There's nothing that you can sell to anybody that's watching. Like this is going to be a bad football team for a while, and we're just going to keep working, and we're going to get better, they say. Wake Forest and Old Dominion. Did you keep up with this at all?
I was. I was very surprised, but I thought Old Dominion, was like, oh, they're going to pull away.
17-0 at the half.
Mm-hmm.
17-0 at the half. And now here's the deal. Wake Forest was not as bad in this game as you would think. Old Dominion had 2 70-plus yard defensive touchdowns in this game. So, okay, 14 points right there. But Wake Forest looked like they just didn't get off the bus in the first half. Like, they did not care about this game. They got it. The ACC has got to stop doing these 2-for-1s where they're going to these, somewhat competitive Sunbelt teams or whatever. And definitely don't go to Old Dominion. They keep pulling these kind of games off. Ugh. Just disgusting. Duke is really good. I was kind of surprised by that.
That kind of got me like, oh, Duke. Oh, there we go.
No issues.
They let me down in basketball, so.
Double O'Neill jumped in and said a lot of the top dogs are down and a few little brothers are balling. Yeah. We're going to hit on Florida State here. But first, North Carolina, 31-13 over Minnesota. Okay, like so they house South Carolina, they house Minnesota, and they were in a game at home with App State, like double overtime. Lucky to come out of that one with a win last week. Drake May is just awesome. Like he's just awesome. Double O'Neill said, "Where did Duke come from?" They hired Mike Elko, and Mike Elko was the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. Before that, he was at Notre Dame. He's the one that taught Clark Lee everything he knows. Not everything he knows, but Clark Lee was like the linebackers coach for Mike Elko when he was DC at Wake Forest before they went to Notre Dame together. And then Clark Lee becomes DC for Brian Kelly after Elko goes to Texas A&M. And then Clark Lee gets the Vandy job and Elko gets the Duke job. Like, look, here's the biggest thing that you need to know about Duke. They got an NFL quarterback. Riley Leonard is awesome. Like, and people may not have known. Packard jumps in, hashtag free Tez. Yeah. I mean, it's just insane. But North Carolina, Double O'Neill said App State is an East Coast version of Boise State. They can beat anybody on any given day. They're practically already a in-state game. Well, yeah. I mean, they're both from North Carolina, but Matt, let's talk about Florida State real quick. They go up 31-16 in this game, and I mean, this was a tight ball game throughout, basically. But they go up 31-16. You think, okay, they're about to run away with this, and I know they got Clemson next week, so maybe it's just a look-ahead spot, and this team is not fully matured yet to where they can just dominate everybody week in and week out. But this thing was a little disconcerting. Wasn't it? Is that what you saw in this?
Yeah, I was thinking like, okay, you're just going to smoke Boston College. But then watching that game, like, why are you letting them stay in this game? Like, why are you letting them stay? Come back in where you have to come. Okay, all right, you can't pull your starters. You can't kind of pull back a little bit. But I was very surprised. They got really more interested in the game as it went on. And Boston College.
Could you imagine what the conversation would have been going into Florida State Clemson week if they had let Boston College beat them? Like, and I know weather was a part of this game. I know they were dealing with like 35 mile an hour wind gusts and whatever else. Jordan Travis went out with an injury for a little bit. Like when he goes out with an injury, he wants you to know that he's injured. Like he's holding his arm. He's just, and then he comes back out there. It's like, come on. Like, I don't know. They had trouble running the ball on Boston College. That's an issue. You look at the team stats, and it was like Boston College outgained them by 127 yards or 117 yards. Like that's wild to me. I have no idea what to think of it. Boston College did have 18 penalties for 131 yards, so you can't count on the home cooking, I guess, because they were at home in Chestnut Hill. But, Florida State, I guess they just didn't care. We'll see what they come out and look like against Clemson.
Yeah.
But it's hard to imagine that this is the same team that just beat the piss out of LSU just a couple weeks ago. Big 12. We got to move on to the Big 12. All right. Let's see. It'll load up eventually. And we'll stay off the G5 stuff here in a little bit. Texas. Let's do that one. Let's talk about Texas. This game was close. I mean, it was 10-3 Texas at the half, and then it was 10-10 going into the fourth quarter, and then Texas rattles off 3 touchdowns. So, and this is with the backup quarterback for Wyoming. I guess this is the letdown spot right after Bama, and they play Baylor next week. Like, is that the only explanation you got for it?
Yeah, I was very surprised. Like, okay, just looking ahead, thinking, oh, okay, you're gonna, you're coming to our house. Are you gonna play? I don't know. Maybe something going on is all these big schools right now, and everyone's just tired, or it just losing focus, or I don't know. I don't know. Is there any kind of like holiday coming up for couples? Maybe their girlfriends are giving too much, trouble or something.
I mean, maybe. Maybe they partied too much after the win in
So-
Tuscaloosa last week.
Yeah,
Like-
just think it. Well, and that can run into it too. Hey, we beat Alabama. We showed them up, and then it's like, hey, you lost your focus.
Yes. So Double O'Neill said the score doesn't reflect the game. Wyoming was hanging in. Yes, 100%. Drew said altitude is getting those Texas boys. This was in Austin. Unless Wyoming brought the altitude with them, that would not be an excuse. Double O'Neill said they were too high. And Packer said that Bama's out of the top 10. Oh, I guess the AP top 25 was dropped. Which who cares? Who cares about the rankings? Let's look at the rest. Oklahoma, anytime they play a less talented team, they are going to beat the piss out of them. That's what Jeff Lebby likes to do. They like to run up the score on teams that have no chance. And that's what they did against Tulsa. They were up 28-0 after the first quarter. So Baylor still didn't look good against Long Island, but they get a win. So that's, I guess, a step in the right direction. Even against Long Island, Sawyer Robertson, the quarterback, 113 yards passing. Yuck. Just not good. Iowa State, for anybody that had the under 5.5 on them before all the gambling suspensions were announced, cheers to you, because Ohio got the dub 10-7. Iowa State did not score a point until the fourth quarter here. Now, Ohio, maybe they've got a good defense. They held Florida Atlantic to only 10 points last week, 3 of which were offensive. And maybe they're good. I don't know. Miami of Ohio beat Cincinnati. That's the first time I've seen that happen in a long, long time. Cincy almost always has a significantly better roster. Miami of Ohio was my bet to win the MAC this year. Like, I think they're going to beat Ohio. I think they're going to win that conference because they've got a really good defense. But it wasn't defense. Like, they were good. They were good on offense. They were good on defense, like everything. Who else? Oh, this is the one. Okay, so we talked about BYU. We talked about West Virginia. TCU in Houston, 36-13. That's exactly what I expected. I think Dana might be in some trouble. And when Dana Holgerson is talking about his buyout, which he didn't this time, but he's been talking about it basically since before the season started. I think he knew he was going to have a not great ball club. But this was your first game at home as in the Big 12 conference. Your first conference game at home. You're hosting TCU, and you get throttled. I don't think that's going to go over well with Fertitta and all those guys. But Dana did say in the offseason, if they want to fire me, I got a buyout. Go ahead and pay me my money. Did you get to watch any of that one last night?
I kept trying to find it. I kept trying to get to it.
Yeah.
Some kept screwing up. I said, I want to watch that game.
There wasn't much to watch. It was just a debacle. Kansas 31-24. I think this was a little bit of a letdown or look ahead spot for Kansas. Nevada is not good. This should not have been a ball game, but regardless. And then finally, this will be the last one that we talk about. South Alabama, 33-7 over Oklahoma State. 33-7 in Stillwater. Webb, the running back for them, as you see on the screen here, 18 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. This wasn't anything fluky. Like, this was not, turnovers and this and that. I mean, they did have turnovers, but South Alabama threw the ball 16 times and demolished them. Like, they were 10 out of 16 passing, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. They ran the ball down their throats, ran it 47 times for an average of 5.2 yards per rush. Oklahoma State got problems. They played 3 quarterbacks. They were all terrible. Like, Alan Bowman's QBR in this game was 2.3. 2.3 out of 100. I mean, what are we doing? Just bananas. Oklahoma State could not run the ball on them. 29 carries for 3.2 yards per rush. This was not great. This was not great. I don't know what to think of Mike Gundy. Like you would question about him maybe being on the hot seat, but I don't think so. I think he's pretty comfortable with this. Like maybe they'll have a down year this year and they'll just figure it out next year. But, whew, that's bad.
He can just be that position where it's like, look, we're just gonna have a bad year.
Yeah,
I'll turn it around.
yeah. Just wait for Oklahoma and Texas to get out of the conference, and then we'll figure it out. I guess. Okay, yay! What a week! What a week! Drew said Houston a bit disappointing so far this season. Double O'Neill said, "Dude, I missed the Oklahoma State game." Yeah, Double O'Neill said, if you have to put in 3 quarterbacks in the game, you're probably in trouble. And then he said, didn't Alabama do that as well? No. Actually, Alabama only played 2. So they're still in trouble, though. If they were playing anybody with a pulse, would have been night. But regardless. All right, let's get out of here. We've spent too long, like usual. Let's see. What else? Oh, winningcureseverything.com. Grab the podcast. All that good stuff. You guys know what to do. Matt, tell them where they can find you.
Follow me on Instagram, Matt_PT_dip_MDT. That long, stupid thing. Or on my clinic, if you're ever interested about anything physical therapy or if you got questions or anything about that, about your health. Strong and Healthy Rehab on all socials.
I like it. Strong and Healthy recap.
Yeah.
No.
Rehab.
Rehab.
Yeah.
I'm
Rehab
recapping.
recap. That's a good one. That's a good one.
All right, let's get out of here. You guys know what to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all the wonderful things. Matt will be back with me on Sunday. I should be back with 2 more shows this week at some point. I'll be back on BetUS this week as well. Gonna enjoy fatherhood for a little while. It's gonna be a good time. All right. With that said, everybody, y'all take care of yourselves, take care of each other. God bless college football, and hopefully all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter @GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.